I'm calling this meeting to order. Today is Tuesday, July 5th, 2022, and this is the meeting of the Water Issues Subcommittee. Let's have roll call, please.
Chairperson Rutzing,
Here.
Member Montoya,
Here.
Member Sischka.
Here.
All are present.
Okay, thank you. Public comment. Public comment will be accepted following each agenda item and are limited to 3 minutes. Please complete a comment card and return it to the city clerk. Speakers will be called in the order received. Okay, item 4, discussion and action items. A, approval of the June 7, 2022 meeting minutes. Anyone have any comments? Okay,
I move we approve as accepted. Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Meeting minutes approved.
I don't think did you guys vote? Did you say aye?
Yes.
Aye. And now we're moving on to item B, water service application number WSA 21-025, submitted by Stroh Architecture, Inc. on behalf of property owner Cortez Circle Properties, LLC, location APN 109-15-015B and 109-15015C, 6.82 total acres, located in Township 13 North, Range 2 West, Section 4, Southeast 1 quarter. And I believe we have a presentation from Gwen.
Yes, good morning, Mayor Pro Tem and members of the subcommittee. The item before you this morning is a request for a water service application for Cortez Circle Apartments. It's a 120-unit apartment unit project. The map here on the screen shows the location. This is South Cortez Street. If you go, this is headed north. It's at the furthest extent of South Cortez, and the street kind of wraps around the project. So it is an existing site. This site here on parcel 015C has 38 dwelling units on it. And this site here, 015B, is an additional parcel to the project. As I mentioned, there are 38 existing dwelling units here in this parcel, which currently use about 4.56 acre-feet per year. In 2018, there was a different applicant that came before the city and entered into City Contract 2018-132 to add an additional 28 units to parcel 015C. The stipulations of that particular agreement allowed for 28 additional dwelling units for a maximum of 62 dwelling units on parcel 015C. There was a restriction in that contract, however, that said if they exceed that number, then that contract would become null and void. So that contract is no longer applicable if this project were to move forward. As I mentioned, the current project, which is for both parcels, let me just bring up a site plan here for you. The current project consists of 120 dwelling units. The 38 existing dwelling units are down in this area. The applicant is, because the last contract is null and void if this moves forward, the applicant is requesting 82 additional dwelling units, which are shown here in brown. All these brown buildings are the 82 additional dwelling units. They're also asking for a clubhouse, which should be located here, a pool, and a spa. The 82 dwelling units would be comprised of approximately 9.84 acre-feet of water. The clubhouse is 3,191 square feet. The pool is 480 square feet, and the spa is 25 square feet. These have a total combined estimated water use of 0.17 acre-feet per year. So the request from this applicant is for 10.01 acre-feet per year. Under the existing water management policy, the applicant can seek up to 50% of the remaining water budget for this period, which started on July 1st. This request does not exceed that number, as we have a 25 acre-foot budget for July to December of 2022. The applicant submitted this application in December of 2021. They went to the Planning and Zoning Commission on June the 9th. The project passed unanimously, I believe. Was it unanimous? Yeah, George is shaking his head. It was unanimous. I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have regarding the water request.
I have a question, and then you can have your turn. What about sub-metering? Are each building going to be sub-metered, or what's?
So when the construction plans come in, we will look at them. If the apartment building has a common plumbing system, then they are not required to be sub-metered. But if it does not, then they are required to be sub-metered. The applicant hasn't reached that stage of the project yet, so when we receive construction plans, staff will act accordingly, whichever way the building is constructed.
I went out there and drove around, and what year was that apartment complex?
That's a good question,
originally?
Mayor Pro Tem.
Looked like something from the 60s.
From the 60s.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's,
yeah. And what's interesting?
sorry, I don't have the exact year.
Yeah, what's interesting, it's at the end of Cortez Street, and that driveway, I thought it was a private driveway, but it's actually all a city-dedicated street. It's
that's
called
correct.
Cortez Circle. And my question is, so the new units will just have yard lines going out to the water main in the street?
That's correct. Each building has to have its own water service connection and its own meter. Each building has to have its own meter at a minimum.
Yeah, because on the west side, which is the top part of the screen there, which overlooks Prescott, that street was just practically dirt. I'd say about 50% of it. So I guess we probably will have some street work to do there.
It's likely that there'll be off-site improvements required as well, Mayor Pro Tem. I know that there is, at a minimum, there is a water main that will be off-site in order to have two feeds into this area in order to achieve water pressure for the fire hydrants.
Okay. Mr. Montoya?
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Gwen, I just want to, I have a clarification question, I think. You say they're seeking 10.01 acre feet per water with a total demand for the entire project of 14.57 acre feet per water. What are they currently using?
So the current usage is estimated at 4.56.
Okay, so
That's the total for the site
That's-
once we're done.
that's what I would have figured from that math. I just want to make sure I was following along correctly.
That's correct.
And then you said that they won't use more than 50% of the allotted budget for our this time that we're in from July to December. So would I take it that there would still be, I guess, 15 or 14.99 left in the water budget for additional residential development like this?
That is correct, Councilman Montoya. As of today,
As of today. Do you, I guess, was this, how much did we use of our last water budget cycle? Do you know? I'm sorry, I know I probably should have asked you that before.
I want to say the residential came in around 20 acre feet.
Okay,
That's where I think it sort of landed, but we're going to give you that information in August.
okay.
Because everything will have wrapped up through the end of June, so we'll bring that back to the subcommittee in August with the total numbers.
Okay. I think those are all my questions for the moment.
Okay, and Mr. Shishka?
Thank you, Chair. Gwen, it says here that the landscaping for the project area is already in place and does not need additional water. But I went up there and it kind of looks like a moonscape on anything else other than the places where buildings are at right now. So can you kind of enlighten me as far as how they're going to do that?
Good morning, members of the Water Committee. I'm Doug Stroh, Stroh Architecture. And the landscaping plan is very schematic at this point in time. So I couldn't tell you precisely how that's going to be done. That was not a requirement that I'm aware of, to have all the landscape architecture actually designed and done. So maybe you could explain that more.
I just need to ask, it says here that the landscaping is already in place, so it doesn't need additional water.
I don't know where that came from.
Okay.
And
Well,
I'll apologize for that. That's staff oversight. There clearly is landscaping on this site, and we do calculate landscaping at 1.5 acre feet for every acre of landscaping. We would have to have the architect give us an analysis of that area in order to tell you how much additional water that would be for the landscaping.
Okay. At least that got cleared up, that I wasn't seeing something that I wasn't seeing. And so, thank you.
No, I assume the landscape architect will try to keep as many of the existing plants as possible, unless there's, obviously plants that really consume more water than what's allowed on the list nowadays. But
I have to be honest with you, going up there and seeing that, I'm really questioning whether they would keep any of that out there, but that's just me.
don't know yet.
I have a question. What about rainwater harvesting? Are you planning on doing any storage tanks to water the landscape?
Not to my knowledge.
I have a question.
Yes.
Can we reasonably proceed with approving this application if there's an undetermined landscape use?
I would say no, that you should postpone this item until the next regular meeting.
I would tend to agree with that assessment.
Yeah, I think landscaping is a detail that we need to work out, because there are, if you look at the buildings on the top of the screen there, it is pretty much, looked like it's been graded. There's some old footers there, and it definitely will need some landscaping. But before we postpone it, I would like to hear from Mr. Stroh do a presentation about the project.
Okay. Well, as we discussed earlier, there's going to be 90 total new units. There are 38 existing ones, and we're going to demolish 8 of those out of the 38. So that brings the total to 120. The density per the zoning allows us to build 200 units, so we're way below the density required. And we are leaving a large area on the south end, which is a hillside with a lot of existing, indigenous trees. We're not touching that hillside. The new pool will be a rectangle in shape, so it'll have a cover that you simply push the button and the cover covers up the pool for at night or when it's not being used. That eliminates the use of chemicals, and it minimizes evaporation too. So we are conscious about that. We'll be using the water-saving water closets in all the units. All of the other appliances will also be Energy Star water-saving, appliances. If you look where all the new units are going, there's not a lot of landscaping areas. There will be basically the amount of trees that are shown on the plan, and the landscaping around the existing buildings. I can't tell you exactly what's going to be happening with them, but we're not going to be, adding to them. We might replace some of them. And, we've been going through the process for over 6 months, and I'm not sure, we can do a landscape plan and delay the project some more. And, but if you look at the site plan, it's mostly buildings and parking, and very hilly, very challenging to build on this site.
Sure.
And but it really is a perfect example, in our opinion, of a good project. It's 5 blocks from downtown. It's walkable. It's infill. We're taking down 2 of the buildings that are in pretty bad shape, And the way it's going to be built is we'll be building it in phases. So we'll probably build 2 or 3 buildings at a time. And then what will happen is the people in the existing units will be given the opportunity to move into those units permanently or move into the units temporarily while their units are totally gutted too. So those are the old-fashioned toilets. We're going to be saving a lot of money. They have, nothing to do with water savings in those old units. So, the calculations of what they're using now is not going to be valid. We're going to be using a lot less. So we feel it's a great project.
Yeah.
Like I said, within walkable of downtown. It's not a top-of-the-line type rental unit. It's more average, more market rate. And so I just think it's a win-win-win for the city.
Mr.
And,
Montoya?
Yeah, Mr. Stroh, I want to be clear. I think this is a great project too. It's infill. It's creating more housing in Prescott. It checks a lot of good boxes. I'm really excited about what you're doing moving forward and the benefit for the community. Unfortunately, I think that we're in a position where we can't allocate you water. We can't approve your water service application if we know exactly what you're asking for. And it may be that your landscaping needs are relatively minimal, but I need a number. And so it sounds like we don't have one. And that's my challenge. And I don't get me wrong, if there's a way to do a conditional move forward with this, I would be open to that. But I even think that would probably not be appropriate. I think we need hard numbers.
What about next month? Do you think we could bring this back next month if you met with Mr. Stroh and figured out how much would be needed for the landscaping?
We could absolutely do that, Mayor Pro Tem.
Yeah.
Or we could also figure out that number before we take it to council for the full vote. At the end of this month, we tentatively have this item scheduled for July 26th.
Oh, okay.
So that gives us the entire month to work with Mr. Stroh on the
Okay,
landscaping water
that's a good
demand.
option, yeah.
If I could suggest a motion that you approve 10.01 plus the landscaping at this committee level, then we could take it to council and the full council could vote at the end of the month and not delay Mr. Stroh for staff
That feels reasonable
oversight.
to me.
Yeah, because I support this project 100%. It's a great location. In fact, I've spoken to some city employees that are residents there, and they love it there, and great views. And it sounds like the owner is being mindful of the tenants and isn't evicting everyone so that he can start over. So that's always a plus. And then, I don't know, maybe speak with the architect about our rainwater harvesting program and how this might fit in with this, with the new buildings, and maybe with the old buildings too, retrofit. So just a suggestion, because I know it's optional, right? It's not a,
That's correct, Mayor Pro Tem.
Requirement.
Rainwater harvesting is optional.
yeah, it's not a requirement, but it would be a plus, I think.
Yeah, this site would be a little bit more challenging because of all the topography and stuff. But typically, when we have the catch basins, we try to create those as passive water collection areas that passively water the trees and plants that are contiguous or in the actual catch basin. But once again, that I didn't realize that we needed all that for this meeting, and so if we could allocate for the buildings and come back within a month with precise information for you, I think the owner would really appreciate that to keep things rolling.
Exactly. We don't want to delay this. And also, when I'm speaking about rainwater harvesting, I'm talking about the rooftop also,
Sure.
and the downspouts and direct storing it. But you need to have rain in order for that to work.
Oh, yeah, that part, Kathy.
Don't forget to make that happen, too.
Thank you.
Okay,
Yeah, Chair.
Steve?
Thank you. I love this project. I think that going up into that area, it's going to totally revitalize that whole area, just like we did with Hilton Garden Inn on the other side of town. And so I'm certainly not against any portion of this. Now, you're going to redo the current buildings that are there?
Yes, they will be renovated after we get the first 2 or 3 buildings constructed and the C of O. then those people can move into the new building. And I would assume most of them are going to probably stay there, but they would not be forced to stay there. They can move back into their older unit. So it'll be some logistics, moving everything out and back and forth, but that's what the owner wants to do, for
Well,
sure.
I know for construction, time is money. And so a month delay is, you never know what is going to come up in that month. So, I appreciate, the time constraints you're under and the financial constraints because of that. So I would be for approving something today. It doesn't sound like the landscaping would be really water intense. It doesn't look like.
No.
But I would still like to have a number and would have liked to have had a number coming into today. So if we can move this along and move it to council, and you can do some work, Gwen, to give us perspective on water use by the landscape, I would be in favor of moving it to council today.
We can do that.
Yeah. So do I hear a motion?
Yes, I move to forward WSA 21-025 to council for approval.
Do you want to include something about the landscaping in there at all, in that motion?
Yes, let's say upon, so it's approval based on whether you can get us a number for the landscaping.
Yeah.
I'll second that.
Before we have the vote, we have a comment.
Peter Krubnik. Just a quick question. Is there an open space requirement for development of this? And he's mentioned retention basins. Do we show those on the map? Flood control could be an issue up there.
Thank you. Good points.
Mr. Krupnik, can you please fill out a request form for that item that you just addressed? Thank you.
So do we vote now?
Do I have a second?
I second.
You seconded it? Okay.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Okay. We'll see you soon. Okay. And now we're moving on to item C, presentation and discussion regarding the 2022 Consumer Confidence Report for calendar year 2021, annual water quality data. Thank you.
Good morning, Mayor Pro Tem, members of the Subcouncil. We're here to discuss the Consumer Confidence Report. My name is Steve Olfers. I'm the Utilities Manager, and I'm joined by Nathan Graham, who is the Production Supervisor. So we just wanted to take a couple minutes here and walk our way through this Consumer Confidence Report. This is an annual report that is presented every year, obviously, if I said annually. The ADEQ requires this to be published by July 1 of each year. And the city has, the Utilities Department has put a number of different places for this consumer confidence report, including we put some back on the back table if anybody wants one there. But just in consideration of environmental considerations, we've also placed it on the website as well for everybody to view and download as they wish. So this is the cover of our CCR. Very nice picture of, I'm not sure which tank that is.
It's like Indian Hill.
Indian Hills, there we go. As I said, this is required by EPA and ADEQ every July 1st to be made public. Essentially, the Consumer Confidence Report was required, placed into law in 1998, and then again reaffirmed in 2018. It essentially tells us that we have a necessity to provide our customers the information on their water quality. So what our water contains, and how we go about treating it, and all kinds of different other information. So we do include the sources and the quality. We have the water quality test results, as well as all the different regular sampling that we do. There are a number of different regulations with both local, federal, and state, but we also do a lot of different process samples to ensure that we're staying in compliance throughout the year. So there's kind of two different sources of, or two different classes, ones that we do for regulation that we report, and also ones that we do outside of regulations or to ensure that we're staying on track the entire year. So those are two different types of tests. So ADEQ, if you don't know who that is, that's the Arizona Department of Environmental Quality. It has a fairly large component in the state government, including land, water, and air pollution. And so we have a very strong relationship with this department, as they also regulate not only drinking water, but also wastewater, reclamation, collection. Any type of public utility is going to be regulated under ADEQ. So our water supplies are all groundwater, come from wells. We've got 5 wells in the Chino area, and we have 3, more than 3, but we have 3 operating ones in the airport area. Our average demand in 2021 was about 6.52 million gallons. About this time of year, we're running in the 8 and 9 million gallons per day, so kind of bounces around depending upon the needs during the calendar year. We've also provided a map of the different wells where they are. So the ones on the left are in Chino. It's kind of hard to see, but we are building our pump station there in Chino, and then the other wells are scattered about Chino Valley, all connecting back to the main production facility there at Road 1 North. Sorry, still trying to get my directions down up there. On the right side are the airport wells. 4 of them are depicted here. We're currently using 3, and these all also come in and eventually will come into the intermediate pump station, which is currently being built. And so we'll have all of our sources combined to ensure that we have proper coverage for all the different areas. I'm going to let Nathan step in from here and talk about the rest of the presentation.
Okay. So in the CCR, this table right here, we put on there what we've actually, so when we pull all the samples, we pull hundreds of samples. You know, in each category, you got, VOCs, SOCs, there might be 50 contaminants that we're testing for. So
Excuse me, when you say VOC, can you just give us can you avoid using acronyms?
Sorry, yeah, volatile organic chemicals. So we have to put in the CCR what actually we got to detect or what we got to hit on. So if you don't see it in the CCR, it's a non-detect. So this page right here just shows what we actually got hits on. Obviously, you can see none of them are above the MCL, maximum contaminant level. Sorry. So we're safe there, so that's that page. So here at Prescott, we use 3 types of treatment techniques. So the first one is chlorine. And with the chlorine, we utilize chlorine for disinfection to prevent the development of bacterial contamination that could occur in the water storage and distribution system. And the second one is blending. This is it's an ADEQ approved blending plan to manage arsenic levels naturally occurring in some wells. A blending plan is a process that combines water from various wells with various arsenic levels to achieve a uniform potable water with the lowest detected levels of arsenic possible. This process allows the city to meet daily demands while keeping the levels of arsenic below the regulatory requirements. And that's just out there in Chino. So all the wells pumped to the tank. It doesn't go to any residents before. Did you have?
Yes.
On the blending, can you tell me, when you say below, like, what is, I would assume that there's some wells out in Chino, from what I understand, that have higher levels of arsenic, and we're trying to bring them down to make it usable. Can you tell us what we end up getting as a target and what the regulatory requirement is?
And that'll be on the next slide. So we usually average right around between 7 and 8. In the higher months, we're probably mid 8s, because that's when we're using some of our bigger producing wells that, have a little bit higher arsenic. But in the wintertime, with the ADQ plan, we run our smaller wells that have lower arsenic. So it'll range just a little bit.
Okay.
So wintertime around 6, summertime around 8.
Okay, thank you.
So, and the third of these 3 processes uses absorptive media for removal of arsenic where water exceeds state quality requirements and blending is not feasible. And that is our airport wells, because we don't go to a single tank, before, I guess, going to consumers. So they're all entry points to the distribution system, our wells out there. So that's where we have to use that media out there. Currently, the city has 1 production well with this type of treatment system, which maintains arsenic levels below the federal maximum contaminant level standards. And on your map, that's AP Well 3, Airport Well 3. So new this year is on the website. We are putting our quarterly arsenic levels on there, so you can, this is just kind of a little quick glimpse of what we have on the website. I don't know if I actually have a link to it. So, yeah, on our website, water and the utilities, under water quality reports, you can come down here and actually see, the actual CCRs. And if you keep scrolling down, here's where we're updating the quarterly arsenic results. With a fun little analogy there, 1 part per billion is like one sheet in a roll of toilet paper stretching from New York to London. So just some fun stuff there. So yeah, the maximum contaminant level for arsenic is 10 parts per billion. As you can see there, quarter 2, 2022, we're at 7.9. So you can see, last year, quarter 3, 2021, that's when we're up at the 8. So it does vary a little bit between summer and winter. So also on the CCR, we have some neat stuff, frequently asked questions, trying to get out to the consumers, because down at Water Operations, we actually, I think last time we did the numbers, we receive over 10,000 phone calls per year, and a lot of them are stuff like this, as far as water hardness, water pressure, just a ton of questions. So we try to get this out to educate the public a little bit, with that. So currently, our water runs about 4.3 to 7.6 grains per gallon, which is, in the moderately hard range. So, a lot of people call about the water hardness, asking us what kind of water softener they can get, stuff like that. So, but then also pressure. Pressure is the other big one. Yeah. So, in our general engineering standards, we require to have a pressure reducing valve installed, just to keep everybody's house and yard lines safe. So, we try to keep it right around 40 to 80 PSI is where the optimal range, we like to give people. 20 is the minimum, we can give. We always have to be above 20. So, just some neat stuff there. Next one is, another one we get a lot, is how do you turn the water off to their house? Because obviously, here in Prescott, there's a lot of people, snowbirds, kind of coming and going. So in the wintertime, they'll go back down to Phoenix, wondering how they turn their water off. So the big thing is never use, the city side where the actual meter is, not to turn that off. Our general engineering standards, once again, require a customer shutoff valve just on the other side of the meter box towards the house. So we ask everybody to use that. So, and there again, I don't know if anybody asks you guys, so, where to turn their water off and stuff. We get a ton of calls on this. Because what happens too, they try to turn it off on the meter side, they break it, and the next thing you know, they say, hey, my water's off, can you come turn it on? You show up there and it's broken. You're like, well. So, yeah, just, stuff like that. It's neat to put in there, like I said, to help educate the people. And then finally, it's just, the water quality here meets the regulatory standards, requires minimal treatment. And then as far as hard copies of the CCR, we do have them out. We have them out at Public Works Building, the City Hall here, Water Operations, which we're over there on Sundog, and Chamber of Commerce. Actually, that's new this year. We asked them if we can put it inside there, and they did. So should get it out to some more people there, and also the library. But other than that, I'll wrap it up with the water quality is excellent here. So.
Well, thank you, Nathan. I would just like to make a few comments. We depend on groundwater 100% for our municipal water, and we're very fortunate because it is what's known as fossil water. It's in the cracked basalt, deep in the earth, and it's actually, we're drinking water from melted glaciers, which is so pure and wonderful. And the public, I think, just takes this for granted. And I just think we need to put a spotlight on how hard working our city employees are in maintaining the quality of our water, because there's other large towns, municipalities where you hear they're having boil water alerts because there's been contamination in their system. And I don't ever remember anything like that ever happening here. And we are very fortunate, and it tastes great. And I never drink bottled water. I always drink Prescott water. And I have a 100-year-old mother-in-law who, that's all she's ever drank. So I think that's a good testimonial to the quality of our water. And it's dependable, too. When you turn on your faucet, there's going to be water there. And that's one reason why I think Prescott is such a desirable place to live, because we have such a great utilities. But I think we also need to make a comment about the arsenic. The arsenic is here. It occurs naturally in the geology of the rocks. It's not contamination from mining or industrial components, and it just occurs here naturally out here in the Southwest, and we keep a pretty close eye on it. So, Brandon, do you have any comments?
No, ma'am. Peter?
Any comments from the public?
Peter Krupnik?
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem and other members. Just want to pick up on Ms. Rusing's comments. Do we have in your report what contaminant levels, if I want to call them contaminants, are in the recharge water that we put out there? So that water is intended to eventually be used for drinking water as it recharges the aquifer. And the related comment to that is not only are we recharging, but every septic tank in the county is recharging. So my question really is, are we tracking, and how are we looking for human-sourced contaminants, things like caffeine, PFAS, birth control pills? These are all known human contaminants that in other places have found their way into our drinking water supply.
Mm-hmm. Those are good points. As I understand, maybe Public Works can back me up, when we treat all of our effluent to, it's called A+ level before we discharge it into the Granite Creek wash.
All of the reclaimed water is monitored by ADEQ and reported as required. Some of the things you mentioned, PFAS, are emerging contaminants, and we are addressing that. We've already started checking our wells for those contaminants. Caffeine's a little bit tougher, as you're very well aware, as are other, they're called the permanent type of prescription and that sort of contamination. I would expect, and I'm just going to go out on a limb here, that because of where the water is located, because it's old water, millions and maybe who knows how old it is, that should not have a problem. But we also rely on the ground to act as a filter. And a lot of those things will react with the ground and be taken out. I mean, the ground is, or a surface water treatment facility is just a big piece of ground that we force the water through. So we use the same type of technology. It just takes thousands or hundreds of thousands of years before it reaches an aquifer.
Yeah. And also, that's why it's important that you dispose of your prescription medications, all medications, properly. You don't flush them down the toilet and contaminate the water system.
And just to follow up, the wells up in Chino, as you're describing, are a long way from our recharge basin. But the new airport wells are much closer.
Completely
And I
agree.
would
Yeah.
certainly
Geologically, yeah.
monitor those a lot more closely.
Yes. Thank you.
Okay. And thank you very much. Any comments? All right. Thank you for all your hard work. All righty. Now moving on to item 5, we have general announcements from the staff.
Good morning, Subcommittee. How are you doing today?
Good morning, Leslie. I hope you're recovering from the 4th of July weekend.
Boy Scout camp.
Boy Scout.
I can still pack and clean and cook and do the sad heart and oh, where's mom kind of situation. So yeah, I've been busy, but
It's
might
like
be a little
you're
tired
still
today.
standing.
I'm still standing, yeah. Load trucks, yeah. Just to follow up on your previous question to help distinguish the consumer confidence report. I didn't introduce myself. I'm sorry. I'm Leslie Grazer, Public Works, Water Resource Project Manager. Your previous question, your CCR is going to handle your potable water supply, and the question you had from the public was related to our affluent recharge side. Mm-hmm. That's going to roll into your annual water withdrawal report. Okay. So if you're looking for that kind of information, that's where it loads into these regulatory pieces, because you have permits associated with your recharge and your recovery and tracking all those things.
And when does that come out?
March is
March.
due. Yeah, each year it's due in March, late March. Okay, I was told I need to find my pieces here. Whip a blog. Should be a general announcements up there. It's in Word, so. Oh, it's down here, not up there. Okay, no worries. It's all good. Okay, so general announcements. There were a few things that I was asked to bring forward. One of them is the city's decision order of assured water supply update. So I do have this in hard copy if you'd like this today for reference. December 21st, 2021 is when we filed it with the state. We had 150 days for administrative review. During that time period, if something administrative is not there, meaning a piece is missing, say a piece of the document that we supplied was missing or something, if they had questions on our documents, that's when they ask for additional information. So what you can see next is In May of '22, we did receive our first deficiency letter related to this, seeking clarifications. And what that does, as noted here, it stops the administrative review clock, and it gives the city a 60-day response period. So we weren't surprised. We keep our ears open and listen to the chatter out there. Nobody gets away with not getting a deficiency letter. So those things we're working on with our consultants now. So there was some questions related to demands, related to what contracts for those demands. As you're aware, there were a significant number of contracts put into play in the last 3 years, and so they're seeking some clarification on those. Whether that's, as you remember, is it committed demand? Well, excuse me, let me back up. Is it current demand? No. Is it committed demand? In some cases. And then is it projected demand? And we've gone through those definitions. So that's the first piece. So we're on a hustle right now to complete that response, and all hands are on deck, basically. Everybody's working. I'll be doing that when I return to the office, too. I don't know if you have any questions on that, but I can go to the second item. Okay, second item, comprehensive agreement number 1. Just for a quick summary, this is your 3-party agreement that includes the town of Prescott Valley and Salt River Project, as well as ourselves. It looks at the Big Chino water supply, which is the future water supply potentially for the city. It was a hard-fought battle for that, and we know there's ongoing challenges related to that supply. So the contract is set up in 2 parts, meaning a monitoring committee as well as a modeling committee. So to get the monitoring portion out of the way, that was our early work, and that's where we were initiating all sorts of contracts with USGS, with Salt River Project, with Yavapai County where appropriate, to get equipment in to further our data sets and hopefully feed those into the modeling portion. So moving to the modeling piece, actually I should back up. We just had a contract clear related to ephemeral stream flow monitoring. That was SRP. We've moved it into our contract structure, and that was one of those things we felt was valuable. Hopefully I'm not mixing too many things at one time, but if we're in an active adjudications right now related to the Verde, and there's questions about subflow or what's ephemeral, what's perennial, what's intermittent, I think this ongoing information has value, or data collection has value on multiple fronts. Okay, the modeling. So this is where the big question is, I think, for everybody. Our modeling contract was set to be completed basically July 12th, I think, of 22. What we have going on is, you can see March 9th, the consultant provided their draft report, which was hard copy, as well as the groundwater flow model. Looking back at our structure again, 3 parties are involved. Those 3 parties are supported by a firm called Leonard Rice Water, LRE. They support SRP in looking at more technical matters that we just don't have people on the city bench, or potentially SRP, even that large of an organization, needs more high-level support in a certain area. And then for Prescott and Prescott Valley, we share Matrix, formerly Southwest Groundwater, and they handle the modeling aspects. So we had the report and the model in hand by March 9th, and then we had a flurry. And so you can see April 6th, 11th, 13th, 26th, 27th, 28th, 29th, May 11th, May 18th, we were in meetings of all different configurations, going through the report, finding out where we were uncertain what was going on, where we challenged maybe if we felt it met reality. I haven't brought it back to you in quite a while, but a model is just a 3-dimensional grid setup. It's and you feed it in the information that you believe you either have. Well, it's not believe. Either you have it or you don't. And if you don't, then you have to make some assumptions based on your neighboring data. So we did that. I think I finally caught up all the meeting notes on that. We provided a response May 24th, so we were behind schedule. We were looking at May 6th to have that back. But we had to wrestle it through 3 different parties to make sure we were all in agreement, because our agreement requires consensus. And if we don't have consensus, then we keep working. June 17th, Golder said to us, I think we can respond to you by June 17th, but we had nothing in writing, and we required it in writing from them. Then their principal for water, Golder, it's now WSP Golder. It's a large firm. They do large mining, pollution projects, modeling. They do a lot of different things. So our contract is focused in their water. So their water principal became involved. And so this is related to, or this would be similar to mediation. So right now we're in mediation, which is fine, because these are not easy things. You know, when we talk about groundwater flow models, there's only so much reality that you can gather. You can't see into the ground. You can't monitor everything. I've been part of the Northern Regional Groundwater Flow Model, which covered basically west to east, and then from north up down to, Black Canyon City. And that was a hard one to get through, too. So I think what I'm recommending is, and how I approach this, is we have patience, we talk it through, and if we have to spend more time on it, we're going to spend a little more time on it, because this is your future water supply. And we don't want to have a model that rolls out where we're like, it doesn't quite, we know something's funny here. We want to address that now. No sense in running scenarios on something that is not quite there. So let me break. Oh, you want to jump in?
Oh, I just wanted to have a question. Wasn't one of the questions with the modeling was they were having a hard time figuring out the baseline levels?
I think maybe the best way to break that down, and this is where the value of the principal being involved. She is a long-term groundwater flow modeler, worked on many projects, obviously invested in the company as a principal, and took the time to sit and listen to our consultants and say, we see this, you have a list of things you're concerned about. We need to start looking at, is this a parameter question or concern? And that kind of gets to what you're saying, baseline. Do we have data? Are we putting in a parameter into the model that we say, well, we can see the wells do this. So then we suspect the hydraulic conductivity is likely more like this. Or is it conceptual? So you have to conceptualize how does it all work together? And a really good one would be either the playa area of the basin. That was challenged in courts before, where we had our current 2 LRE and Southwest Groundwater, now Matrix. That we have already been in high-level conversations when we were trying to get our last decision order out. So to your question, yes, if we're seeing the model not perform to a firm data point that we know, then that warrants more discussion. If we're conceptualizing things different and that's forcing parameters to go a certain way, then we also have to step back. And that could be, for example, the Big Chino Fault. So conceptually and almost pretty firm in geologic information that we have, it's not a conduit, so it doesn't flow water down to the Verde necessarily. Does some get through? Sure. But faults can be either a conduit or a barrier. And in that area, that's a tricky one to work out. So those are just some basics. So the wrap up on this is that we're in next steps. While I was away, I was still working on setting up meetings. And so July 8th, we're meeting to get, we had lots of people on vacation, of course, and so we needed to get some of those people who have basically their hands in the model right now, representing the city, the town, and SRP, to convey back to the principal, this is why we're concerned. And I honestly think it's a fair process that's going on. And so I'm still sitting for just a few more days as the modeling chair, and then I'll support SRP as they move into that role, and we'll transition again. So, and then I think I have next steps to be determined. So I'll be on the phone today emails, and we'll talk a little bit more to see exactly what the next step is. So
Hasn't
I thank
this-
you for your patience on this.
This modeling started in 2012, so it's been like
No,
10 years?
I think we pulled the contract in February of 2017.
Okay.
Excuse me. And I might have this confused because I'm a little sleep deprived of, or our drilling contracts for that day. So we're still roughly within the time horizon that we had planned. We had just hoped that things would move quicker. But when we can bring this to you as a full package, we'll do that. So you can see it's a big lift on this one.
Yeah, and I just want to remind most people know this, but in case they don't, our Big Chino Water Ranch is outside the Prescott AMA.
Correct.
And it depends on the Big Chino aquifer for the water, which is very important for our future water assurance. Because currently we're pumping the Little Chino, which is in the AMA
Correct.
for our current water source.
Chair.
Yes.
Can I say something?
Sure.
Leslie, my concern has always been that one of the parties is going to say, well, the model is great, but that's not the outcome that we wanted. And so, that's always been my concern. And so we need to go back until we get the outcome that we want. Am I totally
I think
out of the realm of reality?
Well, I think those are some past feelings. I mean, there's all sorts of past feelings that you have working with regional partners or even down into the valley. And so I lift a lot of those away and look at what we have now and work the now. You're always going to have different people look at a model and say one thing or another, but this comprehensive agreement was set up to be non-biased. We wanted everybody to participate, and that's why we also have consensus. If we have one party that says, I don't think it does that, I can give you a pretty good example of one of the things that we were seeing that the model was doing. It looks like it was pushing water back towards the well field that we would be pumping, the city and town would be pumping from. And we knew that was probably not happening. So if the city and the town said, wow, yeah, we like that modeling, looks good for us, but is that the kind of data and place we want to be at for making decisions for our community? No. So, even though we could see, that happening in the model, we said, well, that requires a fix. We're going to have the same thing down at the headwaters area too. SRP is going to be looking very closely at that. And if it seems more favorable to them for some reason, maybe not hydrologic reality, well, then Prescott and Prescott Valley are going to go, wait a minute. We don't think we can't see that it's actually doing that. And then there's some things we'll never know because we're not putting a borehole everywhere. We're not measuring every little drop, but we have key locations. So I understand your concern. I mean, I've been doing this for quite a while. So I've seen it all, just about seen it all when it comes to groundwater modeling and the challenges that communities have related to it. So
Okay.
I would say we're in good shape. That's why we entered into a comprehensive agreement and have been working to work well with our partners, and kind of take us out. That's what it did. It took us out of the legal realm and put us back into the science and the working relationship that you have to have. Yeah.
Okay, sounds like we're in good hands.
Thank you,
On
Leslie.
wood. Did you want to move on to the last?
Yes, please.
Okay, so the other one, I threw this on at the last minute this morning. We did have the Water Infrastructure Finance Authority, or WIFA, responsibility expansion related to legislation that went through. So they now will administer $1 billion over 3 years for a long-term water augmentation fund. There's a $200 million water supply development revolving fund. There's a water conservation grant fund of $200 million. Existing federal programs under Safe Drinking Water Act, they'll continue that as well. So there's dollars out there. So now it's well, the city should already have this in their back pocket, but I'm not sure how that looks overall. So there's money out there. If there's needs for this community, ways you can improve things for your community or your neighbors, there's monies available. Some of this is not really earmarked for our area, but what is, we probably want to use. And scrolling through my email this morning, because I wasn't able to jump on Friday. Thursday was the last time I jumped on email. The fifth management plan, we have a notice of adoption that's been sent out. So what that means, I hope I kept a copy of that here. I think I did. So your fifth management plan, of course, comes from the Department of Water Resources. They're looking at ways to continue to work towards safe yield. This is the last of them until there's something in statute that tells ADWR to do something different. But it says here, on June 30th, 2022, the director entered the order of adoption, adopting the fifth management plan and describing the modifications to be made. The kicker here, if no person files a timely motion for rehearing or review, the June 30th, 2022 order of adoption will become final July 30th, 2022. So there's a judicial process where you can, if you see something that you wrong or not something that won't work for your community, you can file something. I didn't necessarily see anything, so I think we're overall rolling that path, unless somebody brings something glaring. There, I think the bottom line is that the state can only do what's in statute. They can't, even if we want them to do something different, we want you to do this or we want you to do that for our region, unless they have that guidance through the statutes, it's not them. If you want something in addition to that fifth management plan, then as a city or as a region, you need to decide what that might be. So and that's all I have. So if you want copies, I do have copies. Otherwise, that's all I have for general announcements.
Okay, well, thank you, Leslie. I really appreciate the updates. Do we have any comments from Zoom?
No, we do not.
And any more comments from the public?
No, we do not.
Yes, Peter.
Insert.
Thank you.
I'm just looking at the schedule for the comprehensive agreement issue. I don't see in there a date for a release to the public. And I guess my question is, can we estimate that? And what will that look like? Will there be a period of time for public comment before any actions by any of the parties are taken?
Chairperson, would you like me to?
Yes,
do my
please.
Best.
Yes.
I'll be working on that this week. And not to joke around with you by any means, is that we are just in an active discussion right now, and so when I have those pieces, I'd be more than happy to share. It would be a poor choice on my part to guesstimate at this point. So we'll go through our July 8th meeting. We'll be looking at the contract more and when seeing which direction it will go. And then once we know timetables for the cities, the towns, SRP's comments to be heard and responded to and acted upon by the firm, then we'll know what that timetable really looks like. It might take them 3 weeks. It might take them, a month and a half. And then we'll have something in play and see where we can go from there.
Okay, thank you. This is all so important because we're in the grip of a terrible drought, and it's been going on for so long that now people are saying, this is going to be our new normal. So it's important that we do our best to conserve and use what's available efficiently and prudently. Thank you. Any more comments? Okay, this meeting's adjourned.